I was just had an interview with a client of the prospect who's from Minnesota, and she was like, "Yeah, we just had a window home repair company, been around for 70 years. On every commercial, every daytime news show, the commercial was there. 3 years ago, the family sold out to a PE firm, a large PE company, and they just shut the doors, just like whoosh. And the friend had a colleague of theirs that just signed a $50,000 window repair for their business, and that company just shut and left. You know, how can you buy a company that's been around for 70 years and you're selling one day and you're closing the door the next day? That means you're a business, you don't care about people.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Karl Ponto. Each week I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week I'm excited to connect with Kevin Juza. Kevin is known as the Tenacious Leader, brings more than 2 decades of experience in corporate America, entrepreneurship, and franchising. He has started his own company, operated multiple fitness franchises, and co-owned real estate investments with his family. He is a consultant and coach who helps business owners navigate one of the toughest challenges they face, passing their business on to the next generation. With research showing that 70% of businesses fail in succession, his mission is to bridge the gap between generations, blending business acumen with trust, transparency, and connection. Based in Poway, California, he empowers families to protect their legacy, strengthen relationships, and keep thriving businesses alive for decades to come. Congrats on being the Tenacious Leader, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Thanks, Karl. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, so I'm excited to talk with you about how, because one of the things that we talked about before starting the recording was that businesses often build this great community around the owners and the family that runs the business. And if they don't have a way to pass that along to the next generation or to someone who's going to carry that community aspect of it, they sell to a PE firm, then you kind of lose that element of the business, and often can lead to the business's downfall, hence that 70% attrition rate, which is really startling. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make when they're doing this handoff or trying to do this handoff?
Wow, there's a couple big ones, but I love your opening. The human to human connection, that's what succession planning really is. In my eyes, it's truly that human to human. How do you pass generational wealth down to the next generation while making it truly a fun process, but also you're affecting community while you're there. How many PE firms do you know pay for jerseys for a soccer team or a baseball team? Or I don't know any in my local community or my family's community when I go visit and watch my nieces and nephews play games. So community is where a lot of businesses start. They start up they maybe did get their door open by getting hired for a company, and then they started their own electric company or HVAC company or carpet cleaning company. And then they got good at that business and they worked for 15, 20 years. And when you have a business that's around for 20 years, you've sold to 4 to 5 different generations of consumers. Think about that. It's you people, you've made enough impact to survive. And at that 20-year, 30-year part, new business isn't truly your need. It's truly servicing the clients you have and keeping those relationships strong. And then when I talk to a lot of founders, maybe they're stuck. They hit a ceiling of whatever that dollar amount is, $1 million a year or $800,000 a year or $1.5 million a year. They got a small business and they're making good money. They've got generational wealth for themselves. They paid off their home. They got a business, and they just wake up and they do their job. It's great. But when it comes to that succession plan, how do you pass it to the next generation? Either a family member or a key business partner, a key client, employee that's been around for the last 10 years. How do you do that? The hardest part is the first conversation. When a founder or a business owner says, let's put together a strategic succession plan, it isn't like a 2-month transition. In a small business where you have relationships and connections and community, it's a 3-year process. It's a process of passing over, elevating the person to authority and respect in your community. And it's you finding other things to do with your time as the owner to go find how you're going to fill your day with something with purpose when you're not responsible for making money for your family and all your employees. But how can you find something to backfill that hole that you're going to have when you sell your business? So that gives you that 3 years or 4 years to transition yourself into your next purpose in life, while you then lift up the next generation who then can carry that torch to the next 5-6 generations of consumers.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned about elevating the person who's going to be taking over and helping them build those relationships, those key relationships with the clients or the team and the other key stakeholders that the original leader or founder or whatever had built is really important. I think it's something that even applies to like a startup or like another like more like growth minded company, because oftentimes these days there's they'll use like fractional leaders for different stages of the growth, because what the company needs when it's between like 1 to 5 million ARR versus 5 to 50 is very different when it comes to skill set and experience. But I think if you just kind of swap them out one day, oh, by the way, this is the CEO's or the CFO's gone, here's a new CFO, and there's no real transfer, and the relationships don't get transferred properly, and the new person comes in and starts doing things differently and causes all sorts of friction, and the trust hasn't been transferred properly, that can lead to a whole bunch of issues that I can see for a small business is like killing the business if it comes to like people are used to dealing with the owner or like the founder as like that's the relationship for who they talk to and they have been working with, and suddenly that person's gone and they didn't transfer the trust, and those clients are likely to go somewhere else because. But I can see that also for scaling company, if you swap out an executive one day without really easing that transition over the like months or years, then the team or the other like people involved that had those relationships could also end up leaving or having a lot more friction that can just derail the goals for a business, or just in this way you're talking about like kill it outright because the relationships are gone.
Yeah, I just saw my Sunday newspaper just going through reading and kind of stuff, and I saw an article that title was how corporations are seeing employees as transitional and transactional type relationships nowadays. They're throwaway. Employees are throwaway to a company, and that just like makes me mad, because it's the employees that built the business. Like for Nike, you have the swoosh, but when you're a salesperson selling Nike gear, you are Nike, and their livelihood is built on that product they're selling. So they become and wear and become that brand. And then you're just going to throw them away because you think you have too many people, instead of leading, instead of developing. It's truly our corporate America these days are driven more. They're not leaders anymore. They're just PE people just looking for profit, and they're not looking to lead anymore. They're just looking to slash and make profit. And that profit is key for a health of a business. But the reality is you grow a business to pay people. You grow a business to sustain your family, to build a wealth so you're able to sustain some stability instead of always hunting and feeling less than. Companies who have responsibility, when there's layoffs, the failure is the top of even though the top's going to get rich for it because stocks improve when they do a layoff, reality is layoffs are a sign of poor leadership and poor vision of the company. not very many small businesses lay off people. Why? Because they're slow to hire, and then they entrench their employees to keep them part of the community. If you're bad, they'll also get rid of you faster, or they'll try to work with you as much as they can because you are local. You're somebody in their community, but they care about you. And that's what I really have, that passion of helping that small family business or small business. How do you keep that succession plan to keep the money local? I was just had an interview with a client of the prospect who's from Minnesota, and she was like, "Yeah, we just had a window home repair company, been around for 70 years. On every commercial, every daytime news show, the commercial was there. 3 years ago, the family sold out to a PE firm, a large PE company, and they just shut the doors, just like whoosh. And the friend had a colleague of theirs that just signed a $50,000 window repair for their business. And that company just shut and left. You know, how can you buy a company that's been around for 70 years and you're selling one day and you're closing the door the next day? That means you're a business. You don't care about people. You don't care about humans and the life or impact you made to them. And that's where the responsibility of, that's why I love working with tax professionals or local residential service industry type people, because they care about their customer. They intimately know their customer, from being responsible, keeping their pool healthy to keeping their carpet clean. You know, they care about the livelihoods of the people they serve. And that's where, you know, it's sad when PEs come in and they rip it down.
Yeah, I think there's the trend of larger companies seeing people as kind of disposable or as cogs is starting to come back to bite them in the butt, because they're going to find it harder and harder to get the right people, like skilled talent in there. Because I know I've also seen some reports that like Gen Z and younger are much less motivated by salary. They're not looking to make a ton of money. They're just looking for, like, you know, mental health and stability and that purpose and feeling that connection. And so the kind of tech jobs where they pay a lot, but it's just like soul crushing, like, work, and people aren't really enjoying it, but they feel stuck because of salary. But they're not going to be able to keep hiring new people, or they're not going to be able to replace the ones that they're cutting, because people are going to find a job where they're actually feeling some sorts of connection. I know there are plenty of businesses out there that are, or not plenty, but there's more and more that are emphasizing or looking for that, like, the humanity in the relationships. Because if you're trying to attract the best people, then and the more and more of the population that's working is caring for other things other than just a big paycheck, then it's the current model that some of these big companies are emphasizing is just not sustainable, and it's going to end up like crumbling eventually, because they don't realize that the best way to get like those profits long-term sustainably is by investing in the right people and supporting the employees, because they support the employees and the employees support the clients and build that community, that relationship, and those clients will keep coming back and they'll be paying more and they're referring people. And that leads to the higher profits and more and like lower cost of acquisition and lower like cost of retention, all the things that companies keep trying to improve upon by cutting these corners when there's no real corners to cut anymore, because and so like the leadership style that all these PE firms and other kind of poor leaders have been using, I think is a limited amount of time that it's going to work until the whole thing's going to crack and just have a huge like a paradigm shift break.
I think something just came to me when you were just talking is I think we need to stop calling corporate American executives leaders.
Yeah.
I think they're just executives.
I always like, I put leadership in air quotes.
I think they're just executives because they're executing a stake, the profit, or they're being money motivated by their shareholders or their board members. They're not listening to their customer. They're not listening to their employees. They're just executing on a project to make them more money and not worrying about everybody underneath them, but just everybody outside of them. And so I just sit back and think about where leadership really was in my life, and it was those line managers that really taught the next generation. A friend of mine works at a large company. We all might know it, and she has to come to work a meeting every Friday, telling how she's going to eliminate jobs and replace them with AI. AI is not going to AI is going to change our workforce, and even smaller businesses, they're going to be affected down the line when it gets mastered a little more for smaller companies to implement it. But they're going to have to hire back new people that just with the new skill set. I mean, yeah, they're cleaning the stack of employees, but they're going to have those employees come back if they want the customers to be served, because AI can't serve customers. AI can't serve internal relationships. AI can just do tasks that we program it to do. And so when you're in that smaller business, they're not having these problems. Their problem is there's not enough people with jobs in that middle class that are spending money to keep their house clean, to keep their community moving forward with it, churning that economy. That's what needs to keep happening. I saw a report last week in that our economy is doing okay right now because the top 20% are finally spending a lot of money on lavish gifts or lavish travel and stock. But the bottom 80, they're hoarding their money because they're living on credit cards. They're scared. That's not long sustainability. How do you keep that community healthy, strong, and confident? It's something's going to break here, and it's going to be interesting who's going to be able to capitalize on it. I learned another conversation yesterday was the last big turn in the economy is how Uber got dry. Uber came out of that, basically bringing working people can work their own time. They can if I want to work 2 hours a day, turn my app on and I can go to work. No one really manages them. That's just the evolution I think we're going to move towards, especially for these Gen Zs and younger generations, when they want that freedom and they just want to be treated fair. If they're not going to be treated fair, they'll just stay in their parents' house. and then they won't be part of the economy, which will stagnate us.
Yeah, I think there's the emphasis of like short-term profits and just being not non-humanistic and what these executives care about is going to end up breaking in a big way. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but this is going to be a huge paradigm shift, and something's going to give. And either like they talk of like AI bubble bursting, or like something's going to trigger a whole series of shifts that are going to be interesting to see what happens. And it's hard to predict exactly what's going to shake out. But it's clear that a lot of the current systems around the world, especially in the U.S., just aren't sustainable. Can't keep functioning this way very much longer.
Well, for the small family businesses, I think the stat was like multiple trillions of dollars in transition over the next 5 to 10 years of the baby juniors, the people that own the small local businesses, are going to retire and move it down to the next generation or cash out. Either way, what's the decision going to be? And then if they cash out, which will give their family money or them money till they die, it's not going to push down to the community. It's not going to push down to the next generation. One of my clients I've worked with, they've been around for 30 years. And when I came into the company, they didn't know. The conversation was like, Kevin, I don't know if I'm going to sell the business. Am I going to get a competitor to buy me out? Or is one of my family members going to step up and take over it? Or what? I don't know. Or are we just going to close our doors and just walk away? I was like, these are the 4 options most family businesses look at. And the funny thing was, one of their children's been working in the business for 15 years. They've been there, and they've been making, good money, generational wealth. They paid their child very little to be part of that family business. And he didn't know if he wanted to stick around because he wanted to start a family. So I had to get them to shift how they actually spent and give their son, elevate him to more of an authority type of role, pay him more in line with what a manager pay would be, and start, building that succession, that confidence in the business. And within 2.5 years, we're going to be growing over 45% in revenue. They're going to break
Wow.
$1 million. They've been around for 30 years. They never broke $1 million. They're going to break it this year. And they are so like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And in this 2-year process, it's about elevating the son to the next level of ownership and knowing I can do this, influences parents to make little changes, changing software here, implementing, let me be responsible for employees now. You guys don't talk to employees. I'll take care of employees. You just take care of your niche that you love doing for the past 30 years and let me start owning the people in the process. And he's doing an amazing job, and it's so fun. And the best thing was this past January when after a year and a half, the dad was like, hey, I changed our will and my son's going to get the business when we pass away. And he never told the son yet, so there's the big gap of communication in family because they're afraid to say what's out there because they don't want it to come true yet. They're not ready for it. And I get it. But to truly have this generational wealth, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty fun. And you see the growth of the people. And then now he's got a child. He's married. He's going to buy a house hopefully next year. He's seeing that truly life, sustainability. He'll never have to look for a job as long as he takes care of his customers and employees. He knows that. He hates looking for a job. I hate looking for a job. I hate looking for contracts. But reality is once you have those good ones, you're good, and you've been around long enough. Most businesses don't last after 5 years because that's only one cycle of a generation of customers you serve. But once you make it that 15 years, that's 3 generations of business cycles that you've actually mastered and survived, and people trust you more and more, and they come back, and you can almost build and rely on that business every year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today, Kevin. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection Podcast, please leave a review, and share it. If you want to check out more or connect myself or Kevin, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.